Hey guys, this is Lefko again. We're coming back with you now for the FC3 Plus review. The FC3 Plus is a clone system, kind of like the Retro Clone Wars review that we had earlier, but in this case, this single standalone system hooks up to your TV, plays regular Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and Super Nintendo games. You can pick up this bad boy from GameGavel.com, a premier auction site on the internet for us gamers. I believe it's about $60 from the Game Gavel site. Just search under the Game Gavel profile and it'll come right up as a buy it now item. Anyway, this system here, as I said earlier, plays your Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and regular Nintendo games. Let's go over the hardware in the first part of the review, and then the second part we'll go over software compatibility. First part I'm going to show you here is this little switch. This is how you actually switch between the three systems. Has an LED that lights up for whenever you're in Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and NES mode. There's a reset button and a power button. Now, I'm not entirely sure about the reset button. As a few of you may know, there's a game for the Sega Genesis called X-Men, and a certain level of the game requires you to hit the reset button in order to continue. And obviously on the Sega Nomad, that's made this game unbeatable. On the Yobos FC3 Plus, I'm not entirely sure if it's a regular reset or if it completely cuts the power. But I'm not real good at that game. I guess we'll find out at a later date, or I need to cheat and use a Game Genie. The top slot there, this one here, that's your regular Nintendo slot. Middle slot, Sega Genesis. Bottom slot is Super Nintendo. Flipping it on the back for your inputs, it does use standard RCA outs, which means just a standard set of RCA cables is all you need to hook it up. It comes with a set. I really prefer this setup because there's no specialty cables, no special box or anything. Anything happens to your cables that you hook up to your TV, just go up and buy another set of generic cables, you're good to go. Very nice. Next up is a region switch between it says 0 and J on it. I assume J stands for Japan. 0 I'm not entirely sure on. Any game I put in this thing, be it regular NTSC or European or Japanese, has worked fine. I've had my switch in the O position. And then finally your standard DC power. On the front are your two controller ports. Keep in mind though, they look like your standard Atari Genesis hookups. They're not. These controllers are actually incompatible. I've shaved the ends off the controller and tried it. The input is different on the controller pinout. Now I'm sure you could actually rewire the actual individual wires of the controller to make it compatible, but just shaving off the ends will not make it compatible for your standard 9-pin configuration. As for the controller apparatus, let's take a look at the controller real quick. Hold on a second. There we go. The controller uses the 6-button Genesis layout for the most part. The D-pad is workable. The controller is surprisingly light. The start and select button. Controller is first button A, second B, third C like the Genesis. The pinout is actually set up to where in your regular Nintendo and Super Nintendo games, your buttons are reversed from your standard controller. Kind of a problem playing games like Mario, everything's completely reversed on you. Then you have your shoulder buttons, which the shoulder buttons are actually also your Z and C buttons. They're the exact same buttons, so whenever you're playing your Super Nintendo, either one works. Same thing for the Genesis side. Overall, I'm kind of iffy on the controller. It's functional, but the button layout really messes with you on later games. Now for the coolest part. Dear God, it looks like a Zapper! I actually really like the gun, other than the fact it don't have the old-style pating to it that the original Zapper had. Overall, though, it's very, very functional on your CRT standard old-style televisions. It works well. I haven't had any problems at all with mine, and it's designed just like the old Nintendo Zapper. Overall, I really like the gun on it. It works great with, I've tried on Duck Hunt, To the Earth, Hogan's Alley. It works great. However, it does not work with Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis light gun games. This is a regular Nintendo gun only. Overall, though, it does fine, and most of us only played light gun games in regular Nintendo anyway. Super Nintendo only had 3 games compatible with the light gun to the best of my knowledge. Overall, though, it works well. It is a shame that we don't have that Super Nintendo Genesis compatibility, but it works out great for regular Nintendo. As far as hardware on the inside, Super Nintendo games, I have ran into Super Mario RPG, which will not run on it. Supposedly version 1.0 of Mario RPG, the original carts do work, but 1.1, the re-release later on, does not work. 1.1 is much more common than 1.0, by the way. Sega Genesis side, haven't had a problem whatsoever. Any game I put in here works. I've got a collection of about 100 Genesis games, a few of them from Europe, a few of them from Japan. All of them work flawlessly. Regular Nintendo is a different story, though. Castlevania 3 refuses to work. RoboCop 3, of all games, refuses to work. Pinbot gets you to the original startup screen, but don't go any further than that. Out of about 200 regular Nintendo games, I'd say about 185 work, which is fairly decent, but NES compatibility is lacking in some areas. Action 52, that's another one that don't fully work. You can get to the menu screen, but then it won't load the game. Overall, though, this is a really good system for a really cheap price if you're just starting to play retro games. You know, let's say you don't have a Genesis yet or don't have a regular Nintendo yet. You can pick up one of these things. You've got all 3 systems good and ready to go. So in the next part of our review, we're going to go over software, the full compatibility and whatnot. Look for that review coming up next week, and if you're really interested in picking up one of these things, they're available in both silver and charcoal colors. This one here is silver, obviously. And you can purchase these on GameGavel.com. See you for part 2.